All right. Jeez, my God. Unbelievable. On I have no words but foul words for um technology. So I'm not gonna even say it. Anyway, I made it. Here I am. Somehow this granted me the permission to use them. That's so sweet of them. Anyway, welcome to Sunday Night Live in um on that side of the date line, and welcome to Monday Morning Live on this side of the date line. All right. So where's that date line? Anybody know where that date line is? No one knows. It's a concept that's in the middle of the ocean. But anyway, if you're on the one side or the other side. Anyway, my God, I'm so glad we made it. So we're on everything now. Yay! Cool. All right, fantastic. And all right, okay, cool. All right, what's wrong with this thing? Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. We're bright again. Cool. Amazing. All right, cool. So, it's it's November 16th? Whatever. It's today anyway. And it happens to be right now anyway. So here we are. So welcome everyone, and my apologies for being a technological idiot, but it wasn't me. Okay. So here we are. Anyway, just as a reminder to everyone that we do this every week, and the format is that you send in questions prior, either on the website at drlodi.com, drlodi.com, or I think on Instagram you can submit your questions that way. And if you're on X or TikTok, it's the handle. Is that what you call it? Dr. Thomas Lodi MD. And if you're not on those, if you're on anything else like YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Rumble, all that, it's just Dr. Thomas Lodi, no MD at the end. Okay. All right. And okay, go away. Questions. Okay, there we are. Good. Okay. Oh, and as a reminder, so the format, as I said, is you send in questions prior, and then I get them and I answer them. And that the problem with that is that questions come up as we're answering and discussing it, and they're valid, important questions. But I can't spend time doing that, because then the people that have sent in questions are less likely to have their questions answered, and it's just not the way we do that. So that's why I have three groups: health and healing, parasite guidance, and CFCs. And CFCs, for those of you who are just here for the first time, and you still use astrological symbols when you're talking about tumors, we do not refer to them as Cancer or Virgo or Leo or Sagittarius, none of them, okay? Uh-huh. And anyway, so we refer to them by what they are, and they're chronically fermenting cells, right? They've lost the ability to use oxygen, and they ferment is how they make energy, and and they ferment whether there's oxygen around or not. Hmm. Okay, so and that's kind of the metabolic hallmark that defines what they are, and they're called chronically fermenting cells, CFCs. Okay, so that's what we call it. So if you're new to that, at least you know this now. All right, so and then so we have a CFC group. All right. And then in those groups, we have meetings, Zoom meetings, private Zoom meetings, where you can ask any question spontaneously. And then I can say, well, wait, did this happen? Did this happen? We can refine the question, my response, because I'll understand more of it. So it's really the way to go. Um, and in addition to being in those groups, in addition to having our regular Zoom meetings, we also have, I put up a lot of written content on there and webinars and videos of just videos that I've made in the past, during lectures and things like that. And then in addition to that, we have Telegram groups, private Telegram groups, where we're all in these Telegram groups, and we talk to each other. And all the other members of these groups are amazing. They've been around for since the beginning of our work here with the groups, but they've been around. They've been dealing with whatever condition it is, whether it's just health. Let's get healthy and stay there. And so they've learned a lot. They have a lot of information. And then, or if it's parasites, it's people that have been dealing with it, and they've tried everything you can think of. Or if it's CFCs, people have been dealing with it for a while and they're doing well, or they're having problems. But that's it. So when you interact on these Telegram groups, you get like 1,000 people helping in addition to me. And I have a naturopathic physician by the name of Marina, who's will be helping me to answer questions. I can't get to them all, but she's been very well trained and a lot of experience, and she's been following me for quite a while, so she's able to reflect my voice and my perspective, right? Because it's really an unusual perspective, and that's it. In any case, so that's the group. So join them, right? And also just to let everyone know that a lot of people still want one-to-one consultations. And I wasn't doing that for a long time because I wanted to focus on the groups. But there are some people that still would like a one-to-one consultation. And so I've decided to start doing them. It'll be limited. Like, I'm not going to do more than 9 per week. So it's not a lot, but I just want to be available for those who really feel that they need a one-to-one consultation. And the reason I don't think you do, is that because if you join the groups, for example, if you have CFCs and you join the groups, twice a week we're going to meet on the Zoom meeting, and you can ask questions and show me your labs, and it's just that it's shared with a lot of people. And what are the problems with that? None. I mean, the only potential problem is that you feel you want to keep it all private, and you don't want anyone to know. And in that case, you just keep your camera off, and you can use an assumed name, and you don't have to reveal yourself. You just submit the question to our moderator, who's on all these meetings, and then we can interact that way. Or if you realize that we all are the same, we're all the same. We have different faces and different heights and different shades of our skin and all that sort of thing. But we're the same. We're the same. 4-chambered heart, 2 lungs, 2 kidneys. I mean, we're all the same. We have this artery, that artery, this vein, that vein. We have lymphatic systems. We have all that. We have reproductive systems. We have hormones. It's just the same. Physiologically, biochemically, we're the same. All right. And then emotionally, psychologically, we're the same. We all need love, need to be loved, need to be respected, need to be acknowledged. We need to love, need to be touched. We need to touch. You know, all of these psychological, um, and sociological and emotional, all of these not desires, but needs of ours are the same. Where it gets complicated is if someone has uh, grown up in a situation where their pleasure, their feeling of pleasure or being satisfied, um, involves something that other people would find the opposite, such as, let's say, a masochist who likes to be beaten or hurt in some way. Okay? But it's still the need to be touched, the need to have that affiliation. All those needs are the same, and that's what I'm saying. We may have them satisfied in different ways, but it's still fundamentally the same need. We all have a need to affiliate. Affiliate means get together with other people. We all have that. We all have that. And then who's able to uh, live without satisfying that need? Monks. That's what a monk would do, and that's what um, in the old days we used to call people hermits or vagabonds or just stuff like that, who don't really have large social groups. I'm basically something like that. I don't have friends really, um, and that's only because I don't. I'm not interested in what everybody's interested in. I'm interested in health, philosophy, or spirituality. Um, that's it. But I'm not into cars and sports and fashion and any of that stuff. So that's not who am I going to talk to? Anyway, um, but I still hang out with you guys, and I hang out with all the people on my team, and that's it. So, but I love it. I love being alone because I read a lot. I study. So anyway, so here we are. Let's get started. Let's get started with the questions. And our first one is Lely. It's Lelle. So I'm going to say Lel. Uh, I guess I can. I'll say that. Lel. All right. Yeah, I'm assuming it's Lel. All right. So, are you a neurologist? Who are we talking about here? Okay, so you guys listen. Let me just say something. We're here to answer questions from people that have submitted them. But guess what? I just reminded us all that we're all the same. All right. So if you have a tumor somewhere, it's doing this. It's the same as the person that might ask me a question. Tumors are tumors are tumors are tumors. All right. They have aerobic glycolysis. They're the same. Uh, and the complications that come from them are the same. What can you have? What can you have? You have complications. You can have pain. You can have compromise of a vital function like breathing, those kinds of things, depending on where it is. Not able to eat. You might wind up with ascites or fluid in your lung. It's the same. So if we're talking to someone else and responding to their question, it applies to you. And you're going to learn a lot. And you're also going to watch when I'm having a discussion with, you can't see it here, but in the groups you can, where I have a discussion and people, you can see their blocks. A lot of people are blocked to hearing things that would be helpful for them, right? And you'll see by these questions. So remember, you're going to learn from other people, all right? You've got to learn, you've got to understand that, all right? Because I see all this activity on here is like, then should I just like mute myself out and let this happen? Huh? You're not even hearing me because you're so busy. Isn't that amazing? Amazing. All right. Well, I'm going to pretend like some of you are listening, and we'll talk about Lel. So this guy will put you to sleep. Ray, are you referring to me? Ray, tell me. Come on, Ray. Come on, Ray. Be bold. If I put you to sleep, why don't you just click off and go to sleep, man? Where's Ray? Come on, Ray. Anyway, okay. So, Lel, for a month now, I've been suffering with this esophagus breathing issues. The symptoms started at the end of September, where I ate something. I would have severe pain in my chest, where it seems like the food is stuck, and I have an inability to take a deep breath. Just to give you some context, I am a C4 quadriplegic. She's referring to the her fourth cervical vertebra, which is a nerve root. I have not had this type of issue before. I went to the emergency room twice. They did CT scans, X-rays on both of my upper and lower abdomen, and stated I don't have any issue. However, I have not had solid food in 4 weeks. I've been able to tolerate smoothies, but I'm also taking Nexium once a day because I believe it has some connection with acid reflux, possibly even though I do not feel the reflux. I've done an H. pylori test. I've also done a barium swallow test. Everything came back normal. What do you recommend? All right, so Lel, so you're finding at least a correlation between what something you ate in September, and you had severe pain in your chest because you couldn't swallow it. So let me just comment on that. That episode would not have been the cause of it. It might have been, this process, whatever it was is going on. This process was going on for quite a while, and that was the final event at which you started to notice it. So if you're C4 quad, you're probably you don't feel things. Like you said, you don't feel, if you have acid reflux, you can't feel it. I understand that. So but hey, wow, you're a hero. I mean, look at you, you're a hero. So keep it up. Now, okay, so let me talk about the esophagus. The esophagus, is 20 centimeters or so. It comes from the up right around your pharynx up here, and it ends at your stomach. All right, and there are two sphincters on either side. You know what a sphincter is? A sphincter is where muscles are either circular or somehow enclosed, and they prevent a continuous flow. Right, so they kind of open and close when appropriate, when necessary. So in the upper esophageal sphincter, that's important, because if not, we couldn't breathe. When we would breathe, things from the esophagus could go in the lungs, and we would could die. So anyway, so you have to have one up there to control because when you swallow, your lung shuts off. You're the airway that shuts off. Anyway, that's a pretty amazing earth suit we have here. To God, and to those of you who don't know about God, let's just call it the divinity of nature. How's that? Okay. Anyway, at the lower esophageal sphincter, which goes into the stomach, that's there so that the stomach contents do not reflux back up into the esophagus. So when people have GERD, which is an acronym, for gastrointestinal, gastroesophageal reflux disease. Um, so that's when acid will go up there and it burns. All right. Um, and so you did an H. pylori test, and the reason you did an H. pylori test, for all of those who you might not know, Helicobacter pylori is a microorganism that has been found to be associated with um, gastritis, ulcers, stomach ulcers, and all that. And then you know, a continuous chronic ulcer can lose its mitochondria and become a chronic tumor. So you know, so the H. pylori would be etiologically relevant there. What did he say? Will be causative. Will be involved in the cause. There's always multiple causes for anything that's happening. We never think, why did I get this? There's no what. There's no one thing that ever causes it, unless, of course, I mean, you're working at Fukushima when the accident happened, and you got a big, huge exposure to radiation. Then we can say that. But you know, those are the only any other CFC is a progressive process. All right. Now, and in terms of the pain, I want something very important for people to understand about the esophagus is that it's located right there, right, and the heart's right next to it. You know, it's kind of like, you know, if you're looking straight on, part of the heart is behind it and all that. So they're right there. When the esophagus goes into spasm, it's a muscular tube with these concentric cartilages. When it goes into spasm, the pain cannot be distinguished from a heart attack. And so when people will go to the emergency room thinking they had a heart attack, and they'll find out that they had esophageal spasm. So anyway, it's that severe. The pain can be that severe. And by the way, it's also relieved with the same thing that relieves the pain of a heart attack, which is nitroglycerin. You know, nitroglycerin they put under your tongue if you're having chest pain, angina, and that causes your arteries to relax and open. It also causes the esophagus to go out to stop spasming. So it's really can be a confusing thing. You got to do EKG and stuff. So anyway, but just to let you know how the pain goes there. Now it looks like they've done everything, and they did the barium swallow. The barium swallow test is really important because that shows, you know, you swallow barium, and they're doing an X-ray, and they can see if there are any areas where there are ulcers or strictures or, you know, anything. If there's a tumor in there, anything they can see because the barium, which you swallowed, which is radio opaque, meaning the rays won't go through there, and so you'll see it, and it just kind of outlines the structure in there, the internal structure of the esophagus. That's kind of the best. So if that came back as normal, and you CT, you did, you know, the other things don't the CT is important. So if perhaps you had something that was external to the esophagus, you know, putting pressure on it or something like that, but that would be it. So we're not seeing anything here, and because you can't feel whether or not you have acid reflux, then you're not sure if the Nexium is helping. So the Nexium is a drug that blocks the stomach from producing hydrochloric acid, which is not a good idea because you need hydrochloric acid in order to have proper digestion. So I can understand if you are quadriplegic and you are lying down all the time, then there's then it's just logical, you know, because you're horizontal, that the stomach acid could work its way through the esophagus. So sitting up is going to help you in that regard. But if you've had these swallows and it looks like everything's working, so you're having trouble swallowing. So Anyway, the term for that is dysphagia. It's just, dys, dys means problem, you know, something that interferes. And phasia is eating, dysphagia. So it's a problem eating. Um, now, a lot of times, you're very right with the stomach acid. If acid's continually leaking in there and it causes some sort of, ulcer or any other kind of reaction, you have a reactive anatomical change there, then that can, the food gets stuck. It feels like it gets stuck. So if you've done all these tests and you trust the people who did it to be knowledgeable enough to read it, then clearly there's not an anatomical cause of your dysphagia. You're having trouble not eating. And so now when there's no anatomical cause of something, we have to look for what's called a functional cause, right? And a functional cause just means the way the process of it happening is somehow causing it. And so what would happen in the esophagus, right? In an esophagus where you have, movement of the food, whatever you've eaten or drank, going down, if there were some problem with the muscles in there, would be, there's the only thing left. If there's nothing anatomical causing this, and these are obviously real, real enough that you haven't eaten solid food in 4 weeks. So, but you can have the smoothie. So anyway, then that would be probably best. You could see a gastroenterologist, but you might want to see a neurologist to look at your nerves, especially since you have, a neurological issue that you have a problem at C4, like I would see a neurologist, because that can be the only thing. And the question is what is your original problem? Whatever happened to damage the nerve root at C4, whatever happened, is that somehow causing this? You have to find that out. But I would be sitting up for now, and smoothies are great. Make sure that you're eating healthy smoothies. Obviously you've got someone helping you, so make sure you're eating healthy smoothies, right? Freshly ground flaxseed with a fresh nut milk, a couple handfuls of broccoli sprouts, and then a wonderful, delicious strawberries or pineapple, whatever you want. So you want to be getting stuff like that. You want to get good, healthy food while you're doing that. The Nexium, if you're not feeling it and there's no evidence that there's a problem, I would not take Nexium. Just because you don't want to block stomach acid production, because it's necessary for the proper digestion. But I would see a neurologist, and let us know. Come back on, please, like next week or the week after. Let us know what's happening, because functional dysphagia. It should show up with a barium swallow. So, but of course, maybe there might be other sophisticated technological stuff going on now, where they watch you on a continuous basis, because perhaps it didn't happen while you were doing the test, but it does happen. So, it's hard to say. Maybe had you eaten something large like solid food, and it causes any kind of expansion of the esophagus, perhaps the nerves that penetrate that area have a reflux and cause a stricture. Maybe there's a functional thing, right, where the expanding the esophagus because of a solid food causes it to do that. It might be something like that. And so a gastroenterologist really knows their stuff, and make sure they're a gastroenterologist that kind of has specialized upper in this area, like esophageal stomach areas, and not one that's focused on other parts of the gastrointestinal system, or a good neurologist. But in the meantime, sit up and make sure those smoothies are as healthy as possible, and you're amazing. So this is tomorrow. You guys. Oh, Richard must be gone. Yeah, so it's so here's the thing. This barium swallow and all that sort of thing. So there's got to be a more functional test because that's an old. It's been around for a long time. That test, and it doesn't really. It's basically it's not looking for functional abnormalities. It's looking for anatomical abnormalities. Is there something there that's blocking it? Right, because you're swallowing a liquid. It's a thick liquid, but it's a liquid. There really needs to be, and I just don't know if there is at this point. There wasn't when I was working in hospitals and stuff like that. So but there's got to be a functional test. So I would go to a really good gastroenterologist who knows this stuff. Make sure when you contact them, make sure you guys specialize in the upper GI. You know about the esophagus because you don't want someone, right? All right. So you gotta let us know what's going on with that. Okay. So here's tomorrow. And tomorrow says the topic is meningioma. I have a meningioma. A year ago, I had a resection, but they had to leave a small portion behind due to its proximity to major vessels in my brain. I would like to get rid of what remains. Lab work shows it's not a chronically fermenting cell. Will ivermectin and fenbendazole accomplish this? Anything you'd recommend that will cross the blood-brain barrier enough to be effective? I eat mostly keto carnivore, not always 100%, but mostly. Occasional sugar, nothing diet. Had several root canals and took the pill for at least a decade and a Clomid for a month when trying to get pregnant. All right, so tomorrow, see, now I would know. I really need to ask you a few questions here because that's why you got. If you guys join the groups, because I'd want to. You had a resection for everyone, just to let you know that needs to cut it out. A meningioma is oma. If you have oma at the as the suffix of a word, it's referring to tumor or an enlarged growth, and a tumor can be benign or malignant. All right, so oma doesn't tell you if it's benign or malignant. But you're saying it's benign, so because they tested it. So they when they cut it out, they looked at it under the microscope and did some other lab tests. All right, so what I don't know, you had several root canals. All right, have they been removed by a biological dentist who knows what they're doing, who sterilizes it with ozone and seals it up with a platelet-rich fibrin? So that's essential to know. You took the pill for at least a decade, so we know also that estrogen can contribute to meningiomas, particularly. So we know that. So that could be part of the process by which this came about. And right now you're eating a keto carnivore diet, not always 100%, mostly. So I've addressed ketogenic diets in the past, and let me do that briefly right now because it's quite relevant, and that a lot of it's become a beautiful Sarah. Anyway, I can't deal with you. You guys got to join the groups. Join the groups. drlodi.com. Go to my website. Join the groups because we can talk. But anyway, so in dealing here with Tamara, and the ketogenic diet, now it's become a fad. It's become anything that becomes a fad is get the truth gets more and more diluted, and you don't know what the truth is. So the question is, what is the purpose of a ketogenic diet, and how do I know I'm on a ketogenic diet? I mean, how do I know I'm achieving the purpose for doing a ketogenic diet? All right. So ketogenic diet means genic means produce, like Genesis. Genic. Keto is ketones, which are there's three ketones that are um, metabolic byproducts of fat being broken down. So when fat is being broken down, fatty acids, you wind up with three ketones, and those are called ketone bodies. So ketogenic, that's what that means. All right. And it should produce a state of ketosis, which means your body is now using more fat than glucose to produce energy. So remember, there's three macronutrients, right? There's fat, carbohydrates, and proteins. And proteins are really amino acids, so we don't, and we only need 9 of them. And the carbohydrates can be anything from simple sugars like one molecule, a glucose, a fructose, galactose, mannose. There's a lot of single molecules. That's a simple sugar. And a complex sugar is carbohydrates, like starch, or in a potato, or spinach. So when glucose molecules are strung together, and a carbohydrate is also has nothing to do with producing energy, but it's used in structure of our body. So certain carbohydrates, in combination with a protein, are necessary for functional things, like receptors on our cells, and there's so when we think of carbohydrates, you have to realize that they have multiple functions. In fact, glucose, when we eat glucose is a simple sugar that's the foundation of most things that we find sweet, and even not sweet. But as I said, it's a single molecule, and when it goes into the cell, it can be used for fuel, or it can be used to use the carbons, right? And it's a 6-carbon sugar, so it can serve as the carbon backbone when our body is making other kinds of molecules, because our body produces all kinds of molecules. I mean, for example, we make 30,000 different proteins. We make 300,000 different peptides, and we make cholesterol. We make all these things. We make everything that's in our body. Our body made, right? We didn't get it from somewhere. We made it. So that is called biosynthesis. The biosynthetic capability of the body requires glucose for the carbons, not fuel. So we can't think of it as bad. It's bad, and it's not bad. It's not only not bad; it's necessary. So anyway, so the ketogenic diet came about because early on in the 30s, they found that it would, in people that had refractory epilepsy, right? In other words, kids or teenagers or even adults, that regardless of whatever they did for treating them, they couldn't have any effect on epilepsy or seizures. And so they found that getting them in a state of ketosis would calm them down. It was pretty amazing, and that's where the whole it became useful in the medical world. So and then in recent years, Thomas Seyfried from Boston University, Boston College, who's done a lot of works with them, and is an advocate of Warburg and the metabolic cause of CFCs. Since CFCs need 19 times more glucose than non-CFC cells, his reasoning is, well, let's not give it the glucose. It's impossible to do. And the reason it's impossible to do is because we need glucose. And if we don't eat it, our body will make it out of an amino acid. It'll break down the proteins that are part of our body and take an amino acid, bring it to the liver, and turn it into a glucose. So if you've done a 40-day water fast, and we do a finger stick to check your glucose, it's going to be normal. You water fast for 40 days, so you're clearly not getting the glucose from any external source. All right, it's called gluconeogenesis. Our body needs it, so you can't get rid of it. The other fuel for CFCs is glutamine, which is an amino acid, which is the most abundant amino acid in our bodies. It's also what they call a non-essential amino acid, meaning we don't have to eat it. We'll make it. As long as we get the other 9 essentials, we'll make it. So we're making glutamine, and we're making glucose. You can't get rid of those fuels. The idea to try to do that is a good idea, but it practically can't work. And then glutamine also turns out to be the primary fuel source for our lymphocytes, which are T cells, the natural killer cells. Yeah, so you don't want to deprive them of eating, because otherwise they won't be around. It's a primary fuel source for the cells that line our intestines, and without those, we're not going to be able to obtain any nutrition from the food we eat. So and it also serves it contributes to our biosynthetic capabilities by giving the nitrogen, because it's an amino acid, means it has a nitrogen, so that nitrogen goes in for part of structure. Because if we're going to be, our body makes proteins, our body makes nucleic acids, all these things that need nitrogen. So we can't get rid of these things. Can't get rid of them. And if you did, you'd be dead. So you're eating a ketogenic diet because you're under the impression that if you were thinking this could be a CFC, or you don't want it to turn into CFCs, you're thinking if you can keep yourself in a state of ketosis. Now, ketosis also requires that of your macronutrients, which are fats, proteins, and carbs, that you want to have the vast majority of fat, so that you're in a state of ketosis. And so that means probably 80% of what you're eating should be fat, 10% protein, and 10% carbs. Now, if you're doing that with what you're calling a carnivore diet, and basically just in terms of terminology, it's not a carnivore diet. You're not eating. There's no one that you see on the internet or you read about or hear about that has a carnivore diet. No one. How many? No one. Why would I say such a bizarre thing? Because carnivores eat animals alive. Cats, lions, tigers, they don't take them home and barbecue them. They don't take them home and They eat it right there, alive or freshly dead. That's what carnivores do, right? So when someone says they're on a carnivore diet, no, they're not. Can't possibly be on a carnivore diet unless you pick up chickens, rip their head off and just start eating them. Other than that, you're not on a carnivore diet. So you're on a scavenger diet, which is a dog diet, which is eating corpses. So a person that eats corpses, animal corpses, that's carnivores will do that, but that's not their preferred thing is to eat it alive. That's what they love. I mean, they don't always have choice in the matter, but that's what they love. So people that say they're on a carnivore diet, they're really on a scavenger diet, a dog food diet. It's corpses. And it's not even a brave one. I mean, it's not even like the real deal. Because you don't usually eat the animal raw without cooking it. Once you've cooked it, you've changed it. And also people that are on what they call a carnivore diet, usually are eating only the muscle. Now, some of them will be eating the organs. Some of you will be eating hearts and livers and kidneys and adrenal glands and ovaries and testes, but not many of you. Not many. In the brain. And by the way, if you're going to eat a carnivore diet, it's best to eat it nose to tail. Got to get it all. Got to get it all. Got to, chew the bones, cartilage, tendons, ligaments, all of it. But anyway, and so, but the way you'll know if you're achieving the goal, so it's much easier to eat a plant ketogenic diet. That's nuts, seeds, coconut oil, avocados. It's a lot easier, palatable. But anyway, the way you know is that you check a finger stick and you check your ketones and you check your glucose. And so you divide your glucose by your ketones. And if you're not, if the product of that equation is, like anywhere from 1 to 3, you got a lot of ketones going on. But to be in true ketosis, therapeutic ketosis, that ratio of the glucose divided by the ketones should be less than 1, should be 0.8 to 0.9, 0.7. That is extremely difficult to obtain while eating a ketogenic diet. And in order to actually maintain it, you'll need to have at least 1 day, sometimes 2 days of the week where you're drinking just water. It's really hard to be in ketosis. The other thing about ketosis is it's not sustainable. You can't do that because you'll be lacking a lot of nutrients. So anyone who's going to do a prolonged ketogenic diet needs to do it in phases where let's say you do 4 to 6 weeks of strict ketosis, and then you should eat for at least 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and then you can do the ketogenic diet again. So anyway, and so I don't. Anyway, that's that. So with that information, make up your mind if you want to continue. Now, so the other things that contribute to meningiomas, as I said, are female hormones, and you were taking the pill, which is synthetic estrogens. So that contributes, and hopefully, so now what you want to do is go to it's hard, a really informed, knowledgeable, experienced either naturopath or medical doctor, and get your hormones balanced, with biologically identical hormones. And they would be using a retail a conventional pharmacy instead of a retail pharmacy. Because in a retail pharmacy, the drugstore you go to, the drugs they sell are produced in large quantities by pharmaceutical companies, and they're all patented. And if they're patented, that means they cannot be natural. They have to be synthetic, because you cannot patent natural substances. So in other words, you could not get a natural estrogen. You would have to get an estrogen that has had molecules added to it, right? And that's the major problem with pharmaceutical products is that they're patented, and they're not natural. And what does that mean? That means their activity is not going to be the same as the activity of a natural estrogen, whatever you're talking about. All right, so that's what you got to do. So it's hard to find someone, but you do, and they'll take you. So I don't know if you're if you used to be on the pill, so I don't know if you're premenopausal or postmenopausal. Um, so if you're premenopausal, then your informed healthcare provider, as they say, will get your blood test for your hormones on days 19 to like 23 of your cycle. Day one being the first day your period comes about. And the reason they'll do that is so they'll be able to evaluate whether or not you're ovulating, you're producing enough progesterone, etc. So to do that, they have to get it then. So if you're postmenopausal, any day will do. It doesn't matter. There's no cycles anymore. But then they've got to bring your hormones back into a healthy cycling condition, and especially for you because you were taking those synthetic estrogens for so long. That'd be really important. So that's the next thing you do. And I would there's another very interesting thing about meningiomas. They've actually done studies where let me see if I can find this for a second. Where is it? Wait a minute. Let me see. Okay. So, with meningiomas in particular, so remember the main reasons they think meningiomas come about is people who have there's a genetic condition. There are some genetic conditions, and this is one of them, neurofibromatosis. So if you had that, you'd know. And the other one is female hormones. Those are the main things that have been observed that are involved. And what's protective of it? And this is borne out in studies. So now, and lots of studies. So they've done meta-analysis. So for any of you that are you all should be interested in research to some degree or another, because you want to get information, and you don't always want to get someone's opinion. It's you should read the original information so that you have an opinion. Because if you're reading someone's opinion, that means their interpretation of what they read, that's not what you want. You want to know the information. You don't want to, yeah, if you trust someone and you like the way they interpret things, that's one thing, but you should read it yourself anyway, so you know what it really said. But anyway, a meta-analysis is where instead of doing a study on something, one research project, they review many, like 100, 200, so there was one where they reviewed it was 249 different studies. So from these studies, they can see what they're all finding in common, and they can come up with some conclusions. So meta-analyses are great because they're showing you like all these. They all say this. So what meta-analysis shows is that what's protective in preventing meningiomas, in other words, that's what you want to stop making it, right? Because if your body stops producing it, it'll go away. You want to stop making it. What they found is that a diet high in vegetables and fruit, because of the antioxidants and all that sort of thing. That's what the meta-analysis showed. All right. And the reason is that tissues our bodies are made of tissues, which are made of cells, are very vulnerable to oxidative stress, oxidative byproducts. We've talked about that, free radicals and all that, right? So our bodies are susceptible to them. And these foods that we're talking about, which are vegetables and especially the orange-colored ones, right, are full of antioxidants in the form of what we call vitamin E, vitamin A, vitamin C, all right, all these things. So, and remember, this is not just one study. This is the result of meta-analysis, okay? And so, and but they found that fish whole grains, nuts, and dairy did not affect the glioma. Did not affect either way. Whereas the eating of other flesh foods was associated with increased risk of gliomas. So what I suggest is eating a really healthy diet, whether or not you have a glioma or not, whether or not you've got any kind of problem in your life, because by doing that, you're going to avoid having those problems. All right. And by the way, like I was trying to make a point earlier that we are all the same. We are all the same. I know we want to be different. We're hoping we're different, but we're not. All celebrity, I know, they're, we envy celebrities for some reason. And I don't. So, but anyway, they're the same. They pass gas. They, everything you do, they do. There's no difference. Anyway, so the point is, so we all need to eat healthy. And there is, by the way, a real human diet. I know it's controversial. But no, there is a human diet. And what I mean is that our body, our anatomy and physiology is such that the nutrients required for our body to be able to produce energy, to obtain energy from the nutrients, and to use the nutrients to make new parts is specific. And in fact, that anatomy and physiology of every creature is designed so they can eat whatever it is that they need to eat, and to reproduce. That's it. That's why our anatomy and physiology is the way it is. Right? So I made a webinar. It's got 3 parts so far. The fourth part is coming up. But the 3 parts are on the human diet. So I would recommend that you watch it, because and it's all I don't make things up. It's research. I give you the research as well. So I'm not going to make things up. All right. And by the way, I'm on the next one of part 4. I'm going to expose the myths. The myths. There's a lot of myths that are keeping people from eating healthy, right? Like oxalates are bad. Don't eat spinach. Don't eat kale. And lignans are bad, and all this stuff. Soy is bad, and what else? Humans are carnivores, whatever. So all that stuff we're going to talk about. Okay. Good. I'm glad you're not envying celebrities. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So anyway, turns out that by eating this food, a lot of vegetables and fruit and nuts and seeds, is preventative from getting CFCs, arthritis, gastritis, SIBO, stroke, heart attack. In other words, why is that the case? That's the case because that's what we're designed to eat. And since that's what we're designed to eat, our biological needs will be met. And when our biological needs are being met, we do not need to adapt, because we're fine. Now, diet is not the only thing that is necessary for health, because our biological needs include sleep at a certain time and a certain quantity. It requires activity. So there's a lot of and then we also have psychological needs. So it's not just diet, but the dietary aspect of health is really, really important. Um, and if you're not eating the food for which we were designed, your body will need to adapt. And those adaptations are what the Rockefellers have taught all of the doctors in the world are diseases. So these adaptations that our bodies go through to maintain our function when we're not having our biological needs met, those adaptations are what they call diseases. See, so it's okay. There are no diseases, and we talk about that at other times too. So I'm not going to do this anymore. But that's it with meningioma. So let's see the next question. The next question is Lisa and Pearl Power. What's your thought on pearl powder? We, Lisa, was that you last week? We did that. We went through that. What are your thoughts on pearl powder? This is the same question. Am I on the wrong? Am I on the right? Is this the right week? Huh. All right. Well, did you watch last week, Lisa? Anyway, so you say, what are your thoughts on pearl powder? Benefits bone health, immune health, has essential amino acids, calcium carbonate, antioxidant. I hear there's a chance of calcium toxicity. I'm using topically on my skin, eyes, but would like to try ingesting it. And it also has aluminum and iron. So Lisa, we talked about this last week, but just as a reminder, you can go back and watch that. I went into it in a little more depth, but just as a reminder, pearls are biological products. It's not a synthetic or non-organic. Organic means anything that exists with whose its fundamental structure is carbon. Remember, we were talking about carbon and glucose. And anyway, so they're carbon-based molecules, and their interactions between each other is what we call organic chemistry. So that is, we've come to think that the word organic means you're not using poisons when you're raising the food. And yes, that's our modern second definition of the word organic. But the original meaning of organic means it's a carbon-based compound. And so, as you point out, it's got calcium carbonate, and it's good for it benefits the bones, the immune system. Yes, it's got a lot of great stuff, and it's been used for thousands of years. And in terms of cosmetics, it's very very good, very useful for that. And yes, you can eat it. They've been eaten for, again, thousands of years. It hasn't, people, not everybody has always been really interested in cosmetics. I mean, in the cosmetic effect of something. A lot of people are taking medicines and stuff for their potential health benefits. So anyway, yeah. And the amount, now remember, trace amounts of metals that we know of as are toxic are almost in everything, right? When you take shale, which is you know so like when plants are in the ground, and there's and they get they have a lot of pressure on them, because because of earth geological movements and stuff like that. What happens is the compression of those plants eventually becomes what we call oil, and it can also become a diamond, right? So when we look at and it's called shale, and when it's in that uh, formative phase, and that shale actually, if you look at it, and that's how they make really good, really healthful water. You get shale. So you want to get a really good mineralized water. And the reason that where this all came about was when we look at the people that on our planet who have lived who lived 150, 60 years up in the mountains, the Hunzas, the Georgians, There's other groups. The water they drink from the streams, they call it glacier milk because it's almost white. It has a, and that's because it's full of minerals, the minerals that are in the soil, and in that drink there are a little bit of aluminum, maybe small amounts. So in other words, that will not, those in those amounts, it's not at all dangerous at all. The problem is that we're getting uh, the government and big business is they're really concerned about us. They're really concerned, and they're in fact they're so concerned that they're like helping us because they're afraid we're not getting enough aluminum. And so what they do is at nighttime when we're sleeping is they have these airplanes flying, and they drop off clouds of nano-sized aluminum. Yeah, and they put other stuff in there too. They're worried we're not getting enough of these metals. Um, And so when we look up into the skies and we see it looks like they're playing tic-tac-toe, they're really just trying to help us make sure we get enough heavy metals and other things. I don't know, mRNA, who knows? But they're yeah. So there's the problem, not in the pearl powder. Okay, in that little bit, because and so it's not at all in amounts that are dangerous, is what I'm saying. But it's got a lot of really healthy benefits. All right. So I would wait a minute, let me shut off this air conditioner. It's just too cold. Wow. Okay. So anyway, at least I go into more detail. So look at last week's live. Okay, this is Lori. What can a person do for Parkinson's disease? I don't like the word Parkinson's, the condition that they call Parkinson's. Can it be slowed down or cured? Okay, Lori, I'm glad you asked the question the way you did, because it's evidence that you're still under the spell of Rocky and the Gang. Rocky and the Gang. Okay, you guys know Rocky and the Gang? And it's not Bullwinkle, and it might be Boris. Nah. But anyway, Rocky and the Gang. I'm talking about a different Rocky and the Gang. I'm calling about J.D. Rockefeller, who, was somehow connected to some. I mean, what he did, he could not have known what he did. Or if he did, then he's not human. Because he played a game of four-dimensional chess, which means including time, so that you make all the right moves so that you can call checkmate 120 years later. And that's what he did. And checkmate was called on us in 2020. And I say checkmate because I'm afraid it is checkmate. Because it is. Anyway, I won't go into that now. But anyway, he anyway took over education, took over medical education, and what he did is he changed the view of instead of doing with all the other disciplines, health disciplines, like chiropractic, osteopathic, naturopathic, homeopathic, all of these disciplines, he successfully got them to be marginalized and considered not real medicine, and it's only the allopathic MDs that are real medicine. He did that, paid off people, killed people, changed law, just did it. So now, not only the American Medical Association, but every medical, the way medicine is practiced in every country around the world, is following the American Medical Association, which is basically the American Rockefeller Association. And that is sitting at the middle of it, the foundation of it is this concept of disease. All right. So we're under the impression that there are diseases which are not us, they're something else, and they get into us, and we've got to get rid of them. That's the whole, that's it. That's the practice of allopathic medicine, allopathetic medicine. I'll call it what it should be called, allopathetic. Um, and and so that's the whole thing. So a diagnosis is what? Naming the enemy. You got to find who's the enemy in this case. Ah, that's the enemy. We got to get rid of it. Right? That's what a diagnosis is. A diagnosis is identifying the enemy that you have to get rid of. And the thing is, there are no things. Parkinson's is not a thing that exists. What happens is if someone is exhibiting certain behaviors, then the licensed clinician of whatever kind can diagnose. If you diagnose it and you're not licensed, this is a criminal offense. It's a criminal offense. It's called practicing medicine without a license. So to practice to be a doctor means you are legally allowed to name things. And the reason that there's so much hype about this really is just money, of course. Because the AMA formed back in the 1860s as a union. But anyway, money, but also when you when a doctor diagnoses someone, it's a curse, it's witchcraft, it's sorcery. You just told that you for the rest of their life, you have wounded them. You have changed the course of their destiny. Now, I don't know if you can understand that, but when we talk about CFCs and you use the word cancer and you say you just basically told someone they're going to die. That's the only meaning that comes from that word, or whatever, diabetic, and then we go on to define it for the people. Now, diabetes can never be cured. As though you're going to be a diabetic the rest of your life. What? Okay. And then you that's what you do. And you find yourself 30 years later at the doctor's office getting the medications for this thing that you can't cure. So why are you taking the medications if you can't cure? It's anyway, cure is a word that goes with disease. So if there are no diseases, then there's no need for the word cure. All right. And if you understand that the person who's eating pasta, bread, potato, rice, cake, candy, blah, 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 and they're just eating a lot of potatoes. They're not eating, I don't need sweets. Okay. Eating a lot of potatoes, whatever. It's going to result in sugar in your blood. You get a lot of sugar in your blood. Your cells will automatically, to defend themselves, become insulin resistant, which is the hallmark of diabetes. All right. So you have this thing. No, you are adapting. Your body is engaging in a homeostatic corrective response. And that's true with every condition, whether it's an inflammation, arthritis, gastritis, pharyngitis, cerebritis, myocarditis, you name it. These are inflammatory processes that are in response to something. They don't just happen. They're in response to something. So if we understand that there aren't things that there's no heart attack that got into you. There's no high blood pressure that got into you, and you've got to get rid of it. There are no it's. There's only the body adapting to a situation that is not meeting its needs and requirements. So what do? You poison yourself. That's the answer. The answer is no, it's not that. What is the answer? Well, you make sure that your body is having its biological needs met, and so that it no longer has to go through that adaptation. That's just it. That's it. So the whole disease structure model lie is held together by words, and these words are the words we're using. So when you say, can it be slowed down or cured? Can it, like there's a thing here, there's no it. Now, what they call Parkinson's is a certain set of neurological, um, you can tell by the way someone talks and walks, and so their facial features, and and then you can do certain tests, um, and you can say, they meet the criteria for what we call Parkinson's, right? But sometimes it's confusing. Sometimes, well, I'm not sure if it's ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. I'm not sure if it's MS or all of these what we call the neurodegenerative conditions are by definition, that's what they are. Okay, we'll call this, if they have this cluster of symptoms, we'll call it that. And it changes. The diagnostic criteria for a specific disease changes. By what? By research? No. By what they call consensus. Consensus means we all agree. So even though the conventional doctors say that the alternative doctors are not science-based, but they are. They're just they're just by the evidence. That's another lie, because they're not science-based. It's by convention. And every one of these specialties, in other words, the kidney doctor, the gastroenterologist, the neurologist, the oncologist, the orthopedist, they all cardiologists, they all have different areas of the body that they specialize in. All right, they all belong to professional societies: American College of Cardiology, American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, and then whatever country you're in, it'll be the Australian or the Peruvian or whatever. These professional societies. Why do we have these professional societies? Well, first of all, it's an exclusive club. You've got to be very special to get it. So now you're in this exclusive. And what do you get from it? Well, you have annual meetings. And what do you do in the annual meetings? Well, you hear what they say the research shows. And then it also has publications that you read all the time, so you stay informed about your particular subject. Well, at these professional societies have also what guidelines that they give their members. So orthopedic surgeons go by these guidelines. The oncologist goes by these guidelines. They're not really guidelines, they're actually instructions. You don't have a choice. If you don't follow them, then you're practicing outside of the standard of care, as they call it. And if you're practicing outside of the standard of care, you can be sanctioned by both the licensing bodies, or if there's a unfavorable bad outcome with a patient, they can sue you, and you have no. You're not going to be backed up by these societies, by the medical profession will not back you up, and so you're going to likely lose. But anyway, their conclusions and their guidelines, their instructions, are by consensus. It means they all agreed on it. You have to understand that. It's not by science. So, there's no scientific basis for that. Well, there's no scientific basis for, I don't know, mRNA shots. There's no scientific basis. Oh, there is actually. It says don't do that. There's no scientific basis that, anything. For example, you have high blood pressure, and to take this drug, and you're going to not have high blood pressure. No. You'll still have high blood pressure as long as you take the drug. So you haven't eliminated anything. You'll still have diabetes, but we'll keep your sugar down a bit. You'll still have whatever. You'll still have arthritis, but it won't hurt as much. So they don't even cure the diseases because they're not curable, because they're not diseases. And so if you use their words, I guess, thing for you, Lori. I apologize, but I don't want to apologize because it's very important that you understand that. So anyway, what can you do for Parkinson's? Anyway, Parkinson's is it's found that people with Parkinson's have there's a part of the brain called the substantia nigra, and it's a relay part. And anyway, it's they have problems in that area, which is why they're like they have a shuffling gait and they have a rigidity. Like if you their arms like this and you move it, it kind of it's a uh, and when they start walking, they can't stop. Uh, and their face gets flat because the muscles in their face don't move. And there's a and there's but that happens in other conditions as well. It's just that and so as it turns out, glutathione, intravenous glutathione, will not immediately, like pretty quickly, half hour, relieve all those problems. Because what's happened in the substantia nigra of the brain is that it's lost the ability to produce glutathione. Uh, and the glutathione production is glutathione is produced in our cells by enzymes. And what glutathione is, it's 3 different amino acids put together. And if you have those 3 amino acids in abundance, you'll do it. Now, of the 3 amino acids, the one that is not as abundant, depending on your diet, is cysteine. Cysteine is an amino acid. So you can, if you take NAC, which is N-acetylcysteine, NAC, cysteine, if you take that since that's the one that's we have limited amounts because of depending on our diet. So if you take it, you now have enough. Your cells will start making more glutathione, and it works. It's very effective doing that. That's one way of it. But an IV of glutathione will actually stop. It's pretty amazing. Someone comes in and they have all of the features of what was known that Parkinson's, and they get the IV and it's gone. It's crazy. So what I did was people can't be getting IVs every day, and it doesn't last that long. I mean, it doesn't last. If you get an IV in the morning, you're going to need another one in the late afternoon. So I tried to think of a way that we could do it. So I worked with a compounding pharmacist. This is when I was still in New York, and I worked with them to try to come up with suppositories, rectal suppositories of glutamine, of a glutathione. Because you can't eat, if you swallow glutathione, which is 3 amino acids, your body will digest it. It'll break them up into separate amino acids, and you're getting amino acids, you're not getting glutathione. But if you take the NAC, right, it'll help your body make more. So that's one way of doing it. But remember, the brain, that part of the brain, the substantia nigra, has trouble making it. So it's very difficult. So you want to get glutathione in the blood, and you can get in the blood by sublingual, IV, or rectal suppository. So we tried that, and it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. But anyway, so getting very healthy and also cleaning up all the oxidative byproducts that are in the body. So making sure you've got enough vitamin C, all the vitamin A, all the vitamin D, all of the vitamin C and E in your body, and you've got enough melatonin, and you want to maximize all your systems and your nutrition and all that stuff. All right, and then and then you could take an extra NAC. but it's not going to stop the process because so you've got to also do biological dentistry. It turns out any condition that is chronic and debilitating is needs the same uh, discovery, the same workup. You've got to find out. You've got to do the same things. It has the same requirements. Because as it turns out, the truth is that what we call aging, what we call diseases, etc., are the direct consequence of accumulated toxins. It's called toxemia. It's just what it is. All right, so you've got to be doing that. But other than that, so if you could get a compounding pharmacist to make glutathione suppositories, he could be using that throughout the day. If you can get a doctor to give you IV glutathione, those are helpful. But in general, to stop the process, you have to do it just as if people that have CFCs. You got to do a thorough detoxification, which includes biological dentists, all the things we talk about, and then optimize your nutrients so that you can be making more glutathione. Doing hyperbaric chamber is great because if you can just flood that area with oxygen. Remember, oxygen and water are life. All right. Can it be cured? It can be, if you can get to completely detox early on, your body will no longer be doing that dance called Parkinson's. Yes. Now, why don't doctors? You guys, I hope you're listening a little bit and not just. All right, so this is Jenny, and it's lymphomas. My friend's husband, after a biopsy, has mature B cell lymphomas with germinal B cell phenotype. They are going to do a PET scan. Any knowledge on this? Oh, um, well, okay. So lymphoma, I think we've talked about it in the past. Remember the word. So you've got the suffix uh, oma. Remember we talked about that meningioma. So oma just means tumor, enlarged growth. It doesn't have to be malignant. But when they say lymphomas, that's usually referring. It's assumed that there's no lymphoma without malignancy. In this case, so there's even their own definitions and language isn't not consistent. So your friends had a biopsy. So in other words, he had one of several lymph nodes, I guess, that were probably enlarged. They did a biopsy and they looked and they said it's a mature B cell or a germinal B cell phenotype. So lymphomas are divided into, when they categorize them, into Hodgkin's lymphomas and non-Hodgkin's, which is crazy. So anything that's not Hodgkin's is non-Hodgkin's. And how do you know it's Hodgkin's? Because you have what's called a Reed-Steinberger cell. Anyway, it's just so the lymphomas will involve, the non-Hodgkin's lymphomas will involve different kinds of cells in the immune system: B cells, T cells. You can have a T cell lymphoma, B cell lymphoma, germinal phenotype. So these are just names that are based upon the description of what they see when they look under the microscope. So most diagnoses do not give you any information on how you got this or how to get rid of it. So in that regard, they're useless. They're just putting a name on it. So it doesn't matter what you call it. Can you help me, Doc? Well, so there, 23%, 42%. No, no, no. But why did we just spend the last 3 months and tens of thousands of dollars to get a diagnosis, Doc? And now you're telling me you can't help me? What could you have helped me on? If it had been, what would you have been able to help me on? If you ask these questions, you're going to be extremely disappointed and shocked. All right, because they don't have, they don't even care. They can't cure anything because nothing is curable because it's not a thing. Anyway, so lymphoma. So he's got a condition where they're finding B cells in there. Okay, so what does that mean? That means the B cells are the the problem that occurred was with B cell production. Now, all white blood cells originate from the bone marrow. They're made in the bone marrow, and then they travel out. So the B cells actually mature in the bone marrow, and then they travel and they hang out in lymph nodes. Then they also go out on expeditions into the tissues and stuff. But that's where they hang out. So what's happened is in their metabolism, when they were being produced in the bone marrow, something prevented them from maturing naturally. In other words, from becoming the way they would become a mature B cell. It wound up this way getting stuck in the germinal phase, or however they want to call it, right? So you can have a mature B cell lymphoma. Or you can germinal. Germinal just means early on. It's a young kid. All right. So that's what that means. That's all it means. So now it's got stuck at that phase, and it's just making lots of them. And so why? How did that happen? It happened because of the same reason that all cells need to ferment, and they need to ferment is because they can no longer use oxygen, so their mitochondria are defective, damaged, or defective, and that's what happens all the time. All right, so just because it started, or it actually started in the bone marrow, but it's manifesting in the lymph. So regardless of where it started, it's still the same process. You want to spit? I want to spit on you. You got what the hell is? Are you guys like? What are you doing here? What are you guys doing here on this thing? I want to spit on you. When did you turn gay? What the? My God. Why would you come out of something like this? It's like. So you see why I have no friends, right? Because I don't, people are not. I'm not usually interested in stuff. Anyway, so a lymphoma is the same as all the other ones. They're all engaged. They all have a metabolic peculiarity of aerobic glycolysis, and that's why they're going to do a PET scan because they has the aerobic glycolysis. If it wasn't having aerobic glycolysis, in other words, what is aerobic glycolysis? It's when the cell is fermenting. Glycolysis is another word for fermenting. It's fermenting instead of making energy through mitochondria. And what that means is it needs 19 times more glucose than a cell would if it had mitochondria. So it's going to have a lot more activity going on with that glucose. It needs more glucose, and that's what happens. So a PET scan is when they give you an injection of fluorodeoxy glucose, FDG. It's just a form of glucose that is radioactive. So when they scan it, they can see it. So they give it to you, and then they wait about an hour, and then they do the scan, and they can see wherever all your tissues will have a certain amount because they all need glucose. But areas that really light up that need a lot will be identified as CFCs. That's what PET scan is. So it relies on this defect, this metabolic defect that defines all CFCs, whether it's breast, ovary, lung, lymphoma, leukemia. They do the well, leukemia is different, but they do the a PET scan. Right. Well, so what do you need to do? Your friend's husband needs to do, Jenny, and I hope uh, they're going to listen to you. Most likely not, for a couple reasons. One is you're taking the work that needs to be done to resolve this situation and giving it to the person, and they may not want. They might say, "Wait a minute, I want to be fixed. I don't want to do this." No. And secondly, they're going to be scared to death by their oncologist because that's the job of the oncologist. It's called the standard of scare, not the standard of care. And they'll scare you enough so that you'll do anything. Okay, what do you? And that's just the way that works. So it's gonna be really hard to convince them. But what your friend's husband needs to do is exactly what we say every time. And I hope you've been around for a while and you've been watching this. Uh, but that is biological dentist immediately good certified, not a member, certified by IAOMT. All right, so yeah, where are all these strange people coming from? Like, why would people come on? Why would people come on and do that? I mean, aren't there like? I mean, is that? I mean, your life is so like meaningless that you've got to do things like this for your. Is this entertaining? This is entertaining. You know what I mean? Coming on publicly and doing things like this. This reminds me of somebody who exposes themselves. You know, drives around in their car with their pants down and calls people over. It's a weird thing. It's a weird thing, and it's anonymous too, right? Anyway, uh, so Jenny, your friend's husband's got to do the biological dentist. Has got to do a thorough juice cleanse, as you know, colon hydrotherapy, all this stuff. So unless he knows that he needs to do that, or knows that, and he's got to know that you know poisoning chemotherapy is not going to work. He's got to know that. So I'm not sure how you're asking for him. He asked you to ask, or because just even if his wife really wanted him to do it and he doesn't want to do it, All right. Are we on, huh? Yay. My God. My God. Anyway, the hell. Um, where was that? Where are the questions? Yeah, there we go. Okay. So, um, but Jenny, your husband has your friend's husband has to want this. So, you've got to, he's got to, we're all brought up in the Rockefeller system. We're all brought up to believe, and remember, you only believe things that are not true. But we're all brought up to believe that there are diseases that are going to get us, and there's no way we're ever going to be healthy. Health is impossible. Disease is inevitable, and we've got to get insurance, and we've got to take shots of poisons to prevent us from getting these diseases that are out there. And they're out there. They're all over the place. They're in the trees, hiding behind rocks. I even saw a lupus, right near the front door. They're all over the place. They're going to get you. They're going to jump on you. Going to get into your body. And the only way you can protect yourself is you got to go to the get your weapon. And then that's the beauty and the benevolence and the brotherhood of Rockefeller. He wanted to help us out. So anyway, so he brought up in that, and he really thinks that then what's going to happen, unfortunately, is he's going to have to go through what they recommend, and only if he has problems with it will he start asking the other questions. So, and by the way, uh, well, I don't know, but a lot of times the allopathic approach can help lymphomas, but by not changing anything, it's going to come back, and or there'll be another CFC starting in your colon or prostate or whatever. So anyway, okay. Here's Julie. Julie's saying, detox and cleansing is her topic. How high AST/ALT does a cleanse cause at most? My 57-year-old unvaxxed friend with COPD was found unresponsive, and she was placed on a ventilator. They said she had multiple organ failure and MRSA pneumonia and H flu. I told her to take more vitamin D. But the only thing she was really compliant with was 2 ppd. So her AST was 7,000, but surprisingly, she wasn't very jaundiced. She had been taking a little ivermectin and some fenbendazole. In 3 days, all of her liver enzymes were back to normal. Her kidney, everything was back to normal. Okay, that was not caused by ivermectin and fenbendazole. All right, so she's taking, and she was taking a little bit, but I mean, even so, multiple organ failure, MRSA, right? You all know that MRSA stands for methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, right? Staph. Methicillin-resistant. What does that mean? That means that in the past they used to get rid of staph with penicillin, and they used so much of it that the organisms became resistant to it, and they tried other things, and finally the big guns was methicillin. methicillin, a part of the penicillin family. It's IV. And then they became resistant to it. And so they call it MRSA, methicillin resistance. So they got to use another antibiotic. I mean, they put this name on it just so you, oh my God, it's another thing to be afraid of. Okay, so MRSA pneumonia. So they had a staphylococcal pneumonia and Haemophilus influenza, and I guess so a flu, which is anyway. That all this does not come from ivermectin. So when you do get elevations, your answer your question, when you do get elevations of liver enzymes from taking all these medications, and then just taking 2 wasn't a lot. When you do get elevations, they're mild. The ALT and AST, their upper limits of normal are anywhere from like 30 to 40, something, 45. They're different, ALT and AST are different, but anyway, they so they might go up to like 60, 70, and then come down on the week off, and then not 7,000, not 500, not 200. So that's not that. Okay. Now, Shayla. So anyway, let's see, Shayla's question is, the okay, would black mold toxicity exposure from a house I used to live in cause POTS, like symptoms going on 5 years now? How can I start detoxing so I can get rid my body of toxins and get rid of the POTS and the symptoms? All right, so POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. Okay, so that's crazy. They named it. Postural orthostatic tachycardia. All right. So when you stand up, anybody stands up from a sitting position or a lying position, when they stand up, the blood by gravity will go down to your feet. So in order to not have more than the feet need, so you want the body through the autonomic nervous system clamps down on the small arterioles, to decrease the blood flow down to the feet so that it stays up. That's a normal response. And part of it is part of the stress response, because it's a mild stress on the body. So it involves the adrenal glands and things like that. So that's what normally happens. So when you're orthostatic, it means when you get up. That just means when you get up. So when we do orthostatic vital signs, we check your blood pressure and pulse when you're lying down, and then when you're sitting up, and then when you're standing up. And if we see big changes, we know you don't have enough fluid in your blood. Your blood volume is down, and then we'll give you some IV fluids, like normal saline or lactated ringers or something like that, to restore blood volume. But this is just, I guess you're not. It doesn't it doesn't make sense how they came up with this, because that means regardless if they give you fluid, you're not going to get it. But anyway, so where would the problem be? And by the way, the tachycardia, the rapid heartbeat, is a proper, appropriate compensatory response, right? Because if your blood is pooling into your feet, to your lower extremities, and it's not being circulated up here, up here, the upper part of your body is saying we don't have enough blood, and so what do? The heart beats faster to keep it flowing. That's just a compensatory response. But where the problem lies is obviously is in the autonomic nervous system. So there's a dysregulation of the autonomic nervous system, which is that part of the nervous system that is the sympathetic and parasympathetic, right? That control all the bodily processes that are not voluntary, like heart beating and you peristalsis in your gut, urination, all the things that are just not things that you do. Like you're gonna walk. Uh, we're not even doing that, but anyway, that's what the autonomic nervous system does. So yours is out of balance. So um, now, could black mold contribute to that? Sure. And you're going to detox not only for the black mold, but for the fact of what you have going on. And that again, Shayla, biological dentist, I would do an 8 week juice cleanse. Make sure you've got your vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin A, vitamin E maxed out. Do all the things that we always talk about. You got to give your thyroid's got to be working, your adrenal glands, all that. You've got to like focus on that, and that's a lot of work. Because if you join our group, join the health and healing group, we can talk about that. I'll tell you how to do it, because it involves a lot of things that you need to know. But yeah, you get this can, and then we need to rebalance the autonomic nervous system. We need to do that. All right. So, I would love to have a discussion with you. I ask you, are you like a really calm person and all that? But anyway, so I share I can't. But yes, you can. This can be helped. Yes. You've got to get rid of the garbage and then restore balance to all your systems, your hormone system, everything. And then specifically your nervous system and your autonomic nervous system, and we can do that. But it's a lot of stuff, so it's not like I could just tell you right now. So Shayla, drlodi.com, just join. Okay, health and healing. All right, you guys. And by the way, if anyone's got CFCs out there and you're in the U.S., our clinic and Oasis of Healing in Arizona is open still. All right. That's it. I just hope that we don't have troubles with Restream next week. And I hope I can find anybody have an idea of another platform you can use so that you don't have to have like 8 cameras. You can just they can all come in through one. That's what Restream does. It lets us all the different platforms except for Instagram come in through one. So anyway, thank you so much. Swadikap, aloha, namaste, namaskar, and adios, and see you next week. All right.